How's it going, you guys? So here today in this video we have Wolfgang and
Melissa
here. We're here to talk to you all a little bit about holistic health, and basically we're going to have a general discussion laying out our blueprint for our own approach to holistic health and just health in general. And basically we're going to be laying out to you the multiple facets, like a pyramid of sorts, of the different areas of health in which you all should be working on in order to achieve the overall healthiest, greatest version of yourself you possibly can. And so essentially I'm going to explain my own version of health first, and then we'll have Melissa kind of go on and tell you guys how she approaches this holistic health pyramid. And just so you all know a little bit about Melissa, Melissa is currently in school to get her master's degree in counseling and psychology.
Just counseling.
Counseling, right. So she's going to be working one-on-one with clients to help them achieve their happiest, healthiest, and most fulfilled self. And so, tell them a little bit about yourself.
As you were saying, I'm actually a master's student in counseling. I'm not just going to be working one-on-one with people, but I will also be working in group settings. And also family settings if I choose to, dealing with primarily mental health. My goal is to actually incorporate holistic health into the sessions, not just what's going on mentally with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Because as you guys will find out in this video, pretty much every aspect of your life is interconnected with itself. All aspects of health, all your mental, your emotional, your spiritual, and your nutrition, and your fitness, of course, and your finances, it all interconnect. So, essentially, for me, my basic pyramid, it starts with the mindset, because like a lot of people, especially when you're first starting your health journey, you're starting at rock bottom. There's a lot of parts of your life that are just in the gutter. A lot of times it's because of the way you were raised. Maybe you weren't raised in the healthiest household. Maybe you just have a lot of limiting beliefs, but essentially before you can even begin working on nutrition, working on fitness, working on your finances, you have to get rid of a lot of these limiting beliefs. Things like a lot of people, for example, who are smoking cigarettes for like 20 years, they're thinking to themselves like, damn, I've been smoking cigarettes for most of my life. Doctors tell me if I stop smoking cigarettes right now, it probably won't make much of a difference. I'll probably still have cancer, get cancer when I'm older. And so instead of actually working on their addiction and working on their health, they use that as a justification to prevent them from changing. And so these people continue smoking and will not even begin on their journey towards improving themselves because they feel like it's not going to pay off because of the justification. And so, obviously these justifications and these mental blockages and these faulty mental patterns, they come in many different shapes and sizes, but you can actually address these by seeking counseling, like someone like Melissa, or, using, self-help books and stuff like that, Tony Robbins, or you can, you can go to church. You could go to church and you can pray to God, right? Or whatever it is that you believe. But the point is, though, you must address the mental health before you can even get started, okay? And for me personally, I like neuroplasticity. I like the idea that your thoughts and your personality and your behaviors are largely built on habit, okay? And so it's almost like a physical changes to the brain that happen over time from childhood. They get solidified. And so in order for you to move past it, you've got to attack it as if it's like a physical, almost like an addiction. And so changing the habits and things.
Well, I actually agree with you. Like in personality disorders, it is something that you develop from a young age. It's not necessarily like a mental illness that you could take a pill. Like there's some people that actually are on mood stabilizers, but nothing happens because it is in fact their personality. So what the approach for them is a lot of counseling, consistent counseling, in order for them to break, over at minimum a year contract is needed actually, or 2-year contract is needed for these individuals so they could actually develop better
habits,
consistent
and
thought processes,
and patterns of thought.
Exactly.
Right. Because, people live a certain way the majority of their life. thinking that it is the only way, and they think that they are the way they are because that's who they are. But in reality, they only believe that, oh, this is my personality because it's how they've always been. And to get what you, if you do what you've always done, you will get what you've always gotten. Okay, so you've got to change the methods, and that's what cognitive behavioral therapy and different forms of counseling and talk therapy and things, that's what it can really, really help with. So mindset's number one. Okay, so once you actually believe that you can achieve it, or you believe that, hey, it's going to be challenging, maybe I won't achieve it, but I'm going to try anyway, you can start to address nutrition. And in fact, you can actually address nutrition right away if you want to, but a lot of people are going to find that hard, especially if you have things like depression. And a lot of people, they feel so depressed that they don't have motivation to do anything. And I hear that a lot with people I've worked with in fitness, some of my clients. So nutrition is interconnected with how you feel, interconnected with your mental health, and it's interconnected with everything. And so is mindset. All these principles are interconnected. Essentially, you want to find a diet that, first of all, makes you feel good. That's very important. Something that works well with you. And I feel like there is, general templates that most people can follow. I personally like the Primal Blueprint by Mark Sisson, but you don't have to follow that if you don't want to. And people find that not only do you have the energy you need to improve, you have, better sleep. Your weight loss will be kind of effortless once you got the nutrition down. I feel, if you have the right one for you, you'll have more energy for the gym, and you'll just feel better overall, right? You're no longer going to feel lethargic. You're no longer going to feel, like you have no energy because you are eating healthy. You're giving your body the building blocks it needs to build these neurotransmitters for mental health, right? That have been shown to actually work similarly to antidepressants, by the way. But you're just giving your body the building blocks that it needs for health. Right, and so what do you like about nutrition?
I don't know. You kind of basically said everything I would say.
All right, cool. And so it's interconnected, right?
Yeah.
And it makes everything a lot easier, basically.
I would want to say too, though, that this is not really like just a pyramid, that you don't really have to just start with
one
and
then
you just have to build up. It's like they're all, since we're talking about interconnected, maybe more like a circle that you're kind of bouncing around in.
True.
But I want to say the basis would be the mental aspect,
absolutely,
of course, and then following that with the next step, which is like doing something here in the physical realm, which I actually agree that nutrition is really important. There is a link to your mental health in that form. I mean, we were talking about it earlier, like if you eat a lot of shitty food, it's gonna
make you feel like
shit.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so if you some people do start with nutrition, and then it gives them the tools that they need to move into mental health. But she's right that you don't have to just start with one and then move on to the other. Some people might find it easy to focus on one thing at a time, but essentially the more aspects of your life that you work on improving, the better off you're going to feel immediately.
Exactly.
But some people might feel a little bit overwhelmed at first.
Yeah, maybe start with a couple of aspects, like nutrition is definitely one of them, and I would incorporate like something, your belief system, your mindset.
Yeah, definitely.
Just like those are like basics, I guess.
Right.
Start off the bottom.
And of course, when you start studying nutrition, it will start to open up your mind to a lot of red pill ideas that kind of expand your belief system as it is, right? Some people might actually find fulfillment in making YouTube channels about nutrition and stuff like that. So you can start to fulfill the next area of this, which I feel like is your goals. It's your your direction in life, right? Because a lot of mental turmoil and a lot of stress, and I would say personally a lot of mental health issues is caused by people just feeling confused. I know I want to do something, but I don't know what. And so focusing on process-oriented goals, or SMART goals, as Melissa posted a video the other day. SMART goals. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. Okay. Goals that can be achieved, but that are measurable. Like, for example, I want to read, 20 pages out of a nutrition textbook per week, and ultimately have a better understanding of nutrition. is a smart goal, I would believe.
Yeah, because you could measure it. You have a time set on it, and it's something realistic according to your schedule. That 20 pages, maybe to some people, might not be realistic, but
I think that's pretty realistic.
yeah.
But yeah.
Well, some people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So smart goals, but smart goals that are in alignment with something that you want to achieve.
Exactly.
Okay.
Something you care about.
Right. Something that brings you fulfillment deep down inside. Like, for example, Melissa, you have said previously, like, most of her life, she's had people come up to her and ask for advice, and she feels like she's really good at helping people, and it's kind of like her gift that she wants to give the world, right?
Yeah, and that's why I'm going into counseling. Yeah.
Because in counseling, it deeply fulfills her, and so like.
I won't be giving advice though. I'm helping people. I basically will be talking to people and leading them to making the right choices, but I'm not going to give advice. Just disclaimer: counselors don't give advice.
Okay. Right. Just so y'all know. And so, that starts with just like, hey, I'm going to enroll in college, I'm going to take 3 classes for this semester, and I'm going to aim to get at least a C+.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can't do that in a master's program.
Right, well.
You have to get a minimum of a B. Just so some
right.
people watching.
Right, but for some people who might not even want to go to college, or might not even believe that they can, you got to start off with what you believe you can handle, and it'll build self-confidence, and it'll kind of be like momentum, and it'll grow from there.
Yeah.
And so eventually, over time, it builds and builds a snowball effect. The snowball effect is now given Melissa, you're like a year away from like a master's degree, basically. Maybe less.
No,
right?
A little more. Next summer, I should be done with my degree.
Yeah, and I mean, that's pretty far, but it all starts with the small goals, that stack up over time. And so you want these goals to be in alignment with your thoughts, words, and actions, okay? In alignment with your beliefs. And so, that could be many different things. It's all unique to the individual. So then after that, obviously your social skills, your social environment, without human interaction, you're going to feel lonely. You'll feel more likely to be depressed. Clinical studies have actually shown the more human interactions someone has, the more oxytocin is produced, for example.
And it's also about the quality of your relationships as well. If you're in there's a lot of domestic violence, you're not going to really get that fulfillment you need, and your mental health will be abysmal. So, yeah, you need good, positive, healthy
influences
connections,
and surroundings.
Yeah. And they could either be relationships as far as with romantic partners, or family, spiritual groups, or other groups of some form.
Absolutely.
Classmates.
Absolutely.
Friends. So it's not just limited to one form of relationship.
Right. Relationships in general, meaning relating to human beings, even acquaintances. Like, one of the most life transforming things someone can do is join like a health club, like Gold's Gym or something. That's actually one of the benefits of joining a commercial gym like Gold's Gym, is that you have all these other people around you that are, just starting out in fitness, and you have community that you can build with friendships and things with. The same thing with even like something like a church, if you believe in God or whatever religion you follow. It could be. I
would say also, kind of lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, centenarians, for example, the longest living human beings on the planet. One of the commonalities between the blue zones, whether you believe it's real or not, is essentially that, they all have some type of a social gathering, like sense of social connection. The Seventh-day Adventists, they're members of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and that has been strongly associated with longevity and better quality of life overall.
Yeah, and like in Japanese culture, people live longer, like well into their hundreds, because they value family so much, and it's that interactions with the family members. They're not just like, the grandma's not just like sitting in the corner by herself. They actually incorporate their elderly into their conversations. They'll go out on outings, they'll eat together. They're actually beloved and part of the central family. So yeah,
it's a central part of their lives. They respect and value their elders as a very valuable part of their society, whereas obviously, if we're going to contrast, here in America, our elders are just like sent to a retirement home. They're viewed as crazy kooks. Yeah. In Japanese culture, it's the complete opposite.
Yeah, and so that's why they live longer. So that social interactions actually do, even for like, to prevent mental illnesses. If you have a strong social support system, you're less likely to develop an actual mental illness.
Dementia or something like
depression,
that. Or
or
depression
even if
or
you
anxiety.
have like the precursors, or like genetically, like you could develop like bipolar disorder. They've actually been studies on twins where like one twin will be in a healthy environment and the other will be in an environment that's like isolated, and that twin is the one that does develop all the symptoms, and the other twin, they spend their whole lives like not knowing that, oh, like I could have had bipolar disorder. Like it's crazy.
Right. Epigenetics, you know, your environment is more powerful than your genetics. Now, there are exceptions to that rule. For example, like if I was born with just like one limb, and I made a video on my channel talking about how nutrition throughout the generations can actually influence your genetics. But regardless, though, there's a lot of things that you can do with the genetics you're given to prevent those hereditary diseases like bipolar disorder. And your social circle is just one of them. And a big part of that is a sense of belonging, right? And so, you know, I feel like what's very, very powerful is having a sense of purpose and then building a social circle around that sense of purpose, right? Like, for example, we're collaborating right now on holistic health because that's a huge value to both of us. And when you start working in a field that you really care about, you start to meet new people and you start to gain a better perspective, and it makes everything in your life just feel so much better.
It does.
Right? And even just as simple as having a friend to talk to can make hard times feel, you know, a little bit better. So now go ahead, Melissa, what lay out your foundation for holistic health. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, we've already talked about a lot of the aspects of health. I actually incorporate on the baseline from my personal model is like mental health and spiritual health are kind of more so on the same level, because it is your belief system that will propel you forward into a certain motion. So if you don't believe anything, if you just say that you're just going to be like in the corner, like, oh, there's no nothing outside of myself and there's no reason to live, and you're not going to do anything. So whatever your belief system is, so mine is God, right? I believe in God, and I go to church pretty regularly, but it's not necessarily the part of going to church that propels me. It's my belief in something outside of myself that motivates me to be a better version of myself on a daily basis. So that's why it is part of my mindset. It's the way I set out goals is because of my belief system. So whatever your belief system is, that's, you know, whether you want to call it spirituality or just a belief system, they're just interconnected with your mental health.
Right.
And so
it's like something outside of yourself that, like, no matter how hard life is, like, let's say everything falls down around you. Let's say you're living in like Gotham City from Batman, like in the Joker movie, where the whole place like Armageddon. Having some type of, I guess you can call it a spiritual belief, whatever you want to call it, having a belief outside of this physical reality, that no matter how the end of the world is near, there's still hope, there's still faith, you can still make the most out of everything, is very, very motivating, especially now because we have like social media. We have all these news outlets and these people posting about World War III and all these things. It's like you need something to keep yourself sane, right?
So it's like your internal compass in a way too. External led internally.
It's strength outside of this. It's strength outside of realism. You know, like a lot of people are like, oh my God, like, you know, the reality is like life just sucks and everything around us sucks. And it's like, you know, that it could be very empowering.
I know a lot of people that are like that, unfortunately.
That's very
it's
disempowering.
It's true. There's a lot of things that suck, but it's like the fact if you believe in something outside of yourself, like, oh, I can make an actual difference, like, okay, as opposed to like, oh, I can't do anything about it.
There's nothing I can do. The whole world's done.
Yeah, it's like, well, then of course you're not going to do shit.
Right.
So aside from that, I would say, the next
and that's
step,
what she'd say is spiritual, right? That's what she'd say
spiritual.
Yeah. Okay.
And then on another dimension, because I'm not going off the pyramid thing, it's like,
well, you could call it whatever you want. It's a circle, right?
The circle of health.
Like the circle of health.
The circle of life.
Yeah. Right.
Where's Simba?
There you go. Circle of health. All right, go ahead.
So depending on what your mindset is, I do agree that nutrition and physical health should be at high priority as well. I was saying like your environmental health, because I made this example before when we were talking about it. Like, if you don't even have a home to live in, what sense does it make, like, being picky about, like, what the food you're eating? It's like, you're going to eat whatever you could get your hands on. So, obviously, like, your physical health incorporating your finances, your environment, as well as the food you're eating and your fitness level are all very important and should all be worked on.
Yeah, I mean, so, like if your finances aren't even good to the point where you can afford your own home, if you're out on the streets, like you're not going to be thinking about, oh my God, like I don't want to get heart disease, so I can't eat this.
I'm going to be a vegan.
Right. Like, I mean, and just as a side note, let me just say that I thought about what if I was homeless. Look, $3 here where we live is all that it takes for me to go and get myself some raw beef. Now, I'm not advocating that, but I'm just saying, from what I've seen, people can live on nothing but red meat alone for decades. And so, for me personally, I'd probably just use that $3 I got from panhandling to go and get myself like some grass or just some like ground beef or something.
I could also imagine you like going into people's ranches and just killing some cattle.
You know, I'd choke a deer. I mean, I'm sorry if you believe that that's ethically wrong, but I'd choke a deer. Read the book Nourishing Diets by Sally Fallon if you think it's unethical. Human beings have been eating insects and bugs. Human beings have been eating grasshoppers, cockroaches, worms, and it actually has valuable nutrients, and they've been able to maintain better health than Western populations for a long time. So that's a side note. If you're low on money, right, just eat some frogs, okay?
Eat some frogs, yeah.
Or eat some grass if you're vegan. If you're vegan, sorry, you know, if you're a plant-based type of person, go ahead. Let's pick up some leaf and let's eat that. Just like all the gorillas that we've evolved from. Just like the cows, right, with 3 or 4 or 5, 6 stomachs that digest that crap. Yeah. Anyway, continue. If you're homeless, you're not going to be thinking about food, okay? So go ahead.
Well, I mean, you will be thinking about food, but in a different way.
Yeah, right. You'll be like, damn, I'll eat anything,
yeah.
Right?
So like that's probably like where I would say like maybe if you really want to start focusing on something, like your first step is like, what do you believe in? The second step like would be kind of like, okay, the physical realm of stuff that you could get to. So your finances, like your nutrition, your fitness levels, your environmental health. So like where you live might actually influence. And then since everything's interconnected, let's go into like that whole social aspect as well, which is part of your environment. So say you're living with someone that is always talking about changing and doesn't do anything. They're always negative. They have that mindset like, life fucking sucks, so why am I going to do anything?
Like, I would totally love to go out and get a better job, but,
excuses.
Unemployment rates are super high, so.
And in San Antonio, I'm sorry, that's just, go get a job.
Yeah.
You could find a job anywhere.
Yeah, honestly, like, being a personal trainer, for example, I bet it's hard to maintain clients and stuff like that, and so there's been many times, especially during certain months, where people just don't care about training. Where I'm only bringing in like $400 a month or something a month, which is bad. And I have to like do something to continue paying rent. And I'll go on Indeed.com and I'll look for any kind of opportunity I can find that is not like too self-defeating. And I'm hired within 3 days a lot of times, okay? And don't just say that's because I'm beautiful,
attitude.
Right? Yeah.
Like the sun's even shining on you.
Yeah, right. This whole time, right? It's because, yeah, I mean.
Yeah, because the sun's setting behind us.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the mindset behind it. Is when you have the right mindset, which is why it's the beginning of all things, or even believing like, oh, it's okay, I got God on my side. It gives you that faith that you can actually get a job.
Right.
You're right.
So that social component, like I said, is interconnected with your mental health. So in the way you set out your goals.
Right.
So socially, you need, as we were talking about before. There you go. Just block it out. Scoot it over.
That's cool. Don't worry about it. It's all good. I'm an angel, you guys.
Back to spiritual health. I'm
right.
Just kidding.
Right. There we go.
So you need to have these. I don't want to just say positive interactions, but they do have to be
conducive to your success and happiness.
Yes, they have to be somewhat positive to a degree. They have to add. So even because I mean, it doesn't have to be like, oh, like you're gonna have a great day. Like you don't like someone doesn't have to tell you that, but just having like a connection with someone, like, hey, how are you doing?
Like honestly, so here's a good example. So let's say I don't here in San Antonio, if you have friends that live in the Marbach area, okay, I've had friends forever all around San Antonio on the west side, yada yada. I have friends that are super successful, by the way, in very bad sides of town, interestingly enough. My friend George, shout out to George, Mechanic to Go, great guy, has his own business, has a whole family. He lives in the ghetto, right? He lives on the west side. Everyone over there on that side of town here where we live, a lot of them is drug dealing. It's like just like really like, you know, not the greatest influences, right? Whatever you believe in, right? But and essentially, if you're around, let's say, a bunch of people who believe that like fighting is like, and by the way, I actually am a competitive fighter, and this is coming from a competitive fighter, right? You live on a side of town where, you know, in high school, in order for you to get respect from people, you've got to be a tough guy who mad dogs everyone, you know, is into gangsta stuff. You know, everyone has a everyone has a SoundCloud account, and they're all like freestyle rappers, right? And they're rapping about drugs and guns, and they get respect from being the most gangsta motherfucker there. Pretty much, you know, you're gonna find yourself on YouTube fighting some random guy at Whataburger, getting your ass kicked, and you're gonna feel embarrassed, right? But the only reason why you do that is because you grew up believing that fighting people at you know, for respect, that's the way you identify yourself. And so you have this idea that like success is beating people up on the side of the road for respect, okay? And so that's just one really extreme idea, but very realistic, man. That people feel like, you know, that influences your behavior, that influences your health, because now like you live in a battleground where like you got to fight to survive, you got to look tough to survive, and now you have all these blockages like pseudo self is created, where you're this tough bad motherfucker in your head, then you get your ass kicked by someone, like or a
chihuahua basically.
Yeah, now you're like woo, 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 like no, don't hurt me, and your whole identity is crushed, and so anyway, yeah. Like well, I mean, you know, you see this in a variety of different ways. You know, if you grow up in let's just say you grow up in a house where you know, you're slapped every time you eat food with your mouth open, right? Like your mom just says, look, if you eat with your mouth open, you're worthless, right? And she slaps you in the face, okay? That happens, okay? Well, that could cause an eating disorder, actually. That can cause an eating disorder. That can cause anxiety, social anxiety, or anxiety around food. And now you have a clinically diagnosable, you know, medical disorder from the DSM that could have been caused by your influences growing up. Okay, so go ahead and take it away.
All right, so after that beautiful depiction of horrendous events.
It's a war zone, guys.
I know. Okay, so social interactions are vastly important. What else haven't we covered?
Okay, so your social circle influences.
Oh, emotional health.
Emotional health. Describe, you know, she believes that there's There's
a separation between mental health and
emotional health.
Yeah. Because, okay, I gave the example of someone. Oh, let's go back to that whole like the mentality of like beating someone up, right? So
yeah, there you go.
Let's say something happens, like
let's scoot this way a little bit so we block out the sun. All right, go ahead.
Okay.
Beating people up.
Let's say someone pisses you off. Is it okay to beat the shit out of them, or is it better if you just walk away because you can? You know, nothing's gonna happen if you walk away, right? So if you're feeling really emotional because they're yelling at you and you feel kind of triggered because they've said something or done something that really, you know, just pisses you off, you know, gets under your skin.
Like,
yeah, so logically speaking, you probably shouldn't do anything. But if you think your emotions are correct,
emotions consume you.
Yeah, then of course you're going to feel like it's okay for you to act upon it. But if you separate that emotion, and this is coming from someone that is a very sensitive person, I'm a very emotional person, I'll admit. You have to find the difference between the emotional realm and your mental realm, and then act accordingly to that.
And so basically, you know, your emotions and your thoughts, they're interconnected, just like all of this is interconnected, to the point where, like, when you feel consumed by any emotion, but in particular anger, like, oh God, I just want to kill someone. You're not going to be thinking rationally. You're now thinking from the emotional space of anger, and so your emotions consume your thoughts. And so in order to act rationally and prevent yourself from ruining your whole life and doing something you're going to regret with severe consequences, you've got to see that your thoughts and emotions are separate. And that's exactly what she's saying. And so you've got to say, okay, I'm feeling super angry right now. Let's remove myself from the situation, right? So you go for a run, right, which has been shown to actually increase brain-derived neurotropic factor, which helps your thoughts organize themselves. And essentially all that cortisol, all that stress that you had goes away from running, because we're biologically programmed to run from stress or towards stress. And now you can think rationally, right? That run, you took yourself out of the anger space into the running space. Or you can go and listen to music or something, or put yourself in a better state of mind, a better emotional state, and now you think differently. And so what you'll find is, I feel angry right now, but I can think happy thoughts, or I can think at least neutral thoughts and get the fuck out of there, right?
Exactly. And if you're having trouble with controlling yourself when you are having like those bouts of anger, you should probably go to counseling, just saying, because there's something obviously really extreme going on within you that you can't control yourself. But maybe could actually do that in a future video, like making like tips for getting yourself into thinking rationally.
Absolutely.
That'd be a cool video.
That's something that I've thought and reflected on like for years. This is a very powerful concept, by the way, for people who have mental illness. So what's the next pillar? There's other pillars, right?
I think we've already hit them all.
All right.
Mental, spiritual, emotional, all the 4 physical ones. Social, I think that's it. And
so when people talk about holistic health, right, a lot of people think holistic means like Reiki and spiritual stuff, and I mean it could, but holistic just means the whole person, right?
Exactly.
Like everything combined. Because if you really think about all this, and we're going to break this down into future videos, of course, about how all these are interconnected and how it influences each other, you'll find that every little piece of this puzzle that you start to work on makes everything else a little bit easier. Right, because if you're eating food that makes your stomach hurt, that causes blood sugar fluctuations, like you're not gonna be able to think rationally. You're gonna be like, oh, I hurt so bad, leave me alone.
And you're gonna feel irrational.
Like you don't want to be around people if
cranky.
you're bloated up and gassy from broccoli or something. Okay, and the same thing goes for your mental health. If you don't get your mental health on check, then how are you ever going to start, if you're so depressed that you can't even get out the door and like do your normal job every day, then how are you going to get out the door and go to the gym or read a book or something?
I want to say, like, health is an ongoing process. It's like you're going to do this until the day you die, basically. Right. So it's like, so you can't just think like, by doing this, I'm going to reach this certain goal and then that's it. Right. I'll be fine. No, you're not just going to plateau and be healthy forever. Right. You're just, it's an ongoing lifestyle.
And I think it's fundamental to maturity. I think that's what it really is, becoming a whole, happy, fulfilled, complete human being. And essentially, like she's saying, I mean, you're going to have to continuously work on each part of this, and you'll be happy to, because you see how much of a benefit it has on your life. It's not this stressful bit of effort every single day. It's like, wow, this is like actually making me happy, really. This is what real happiness is. And
granted, you'll have some days where it's not as great.
Absolutely. But it'll be easier too, the challenges in life. And you'll fall off. Like sometimes working on your mental health will actually it'll take priority over working on your finances. Sometimes when you're getting into nutrition, you might have to spend your whole paycheck on nutrition education. Or education for your career even. You might buy a like me. Like
going to school.
Right, like
all my money's funneling into my university.
Working full time to pay for full time school to get your degree to be fulfilled. That could take up all your finances, and so they're interconnected. Like you're paying a shit ton of money to where you're like homeless, and you have to live. You might have to live like under a bridge for a while to pay for that fulfillment. But then once you get that taken care of, now you're making a shit ton of money.
Kind of sounds like we're trying to get people to be homeless.
Right? Yeah. Eat red meat. Eat raw beef. Right? $3. Right? There you go. Holistic health, everyone. Okay. Anyway, so let's wrap this up. So, what's your YouTube channel?
Melisa Arroyo. That's
okay.
So you can find me there.
And right now, my YouTube channel is called Wolfgang Lozana Health Science. On my YouTube channel, I do like to talk a lot about the super complex science behind nutrition science and does LDL cholesterol cause heart disease and stuff like that. But I also talk about easy stuff for most people to understand, like how to exercise for mental health, the effects of nutrition on mental health, and how you can improve the symptoms of certain mental health conditions and other things using nutrition, using fitness and stuff like that. And I like to dive into anxiety and where it comes from, and very similar to hers, although there's a lot of science and stuff.
Yeah,
so
you're more science-based. I'm more like the artsy,
right,
let's do the skills kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. More comforting, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
More
Different approaches.
All right. So we hope that you like this video. Leave your questions in the comments down below. And if you're watching this from my channel, go and subscribe to Melissa. She's got a lot of great content. She's rather new to this, but she's getting better. And, and especially, when she starts counseling, she's going to have so much experience with other people.
Yeah.
And then if you're on Melissa's channel, go ahead and subscribe to Wolfgang Lizana Health Science. Follow me on Instagram, Coach Wolfgang VL. What about yours?
My Instagram is Holistic Health Melissa, and
not just Melissa. She's Holistic Health Melissa.
Health. Important to know.
Melissa the vegan.
Yeah,
No.
you could also find me on Facebook. Generally, I also post stuff about travel on my YouTube channel as well, because I think that's one of the other aspects of that. One of the things that I find important. Back to mental health.
It's one of her values.
One of my values. Yeah.
Right.
What else do I put on there?
Man, I post about eating steaks and lifting weights. I'm a competitive martial artist, so there's a lot of training footage on there of me, doing heavy bag stuff. But I post a lot of information and trying to help people, a lot of nutrition information, trying to debunk some of the myths that are out there, stuff like that. So
like and subscribe and
comment down below.
Yeah, comment.
Ask us your questions. Feel free to message me on Instagram, and leave comments asking your questions.
All right. Well, catch you guys later.
Adios, amigos.